Well, hello. Welcome to another Power of Productivity episode. Today I am joined by Andrew Gissal from Bearex. Bearex helps manufacturers with their data strategy to support operational efficiencies. And I'm from TurtleWorks, where we help companies work successfully with Microsoft 365. And we're going to talk about really getting the value out of the data you have and how to get started. What we've encountered, what we experience is um, decision makers, owners, managers, whatever, like they know they have data, they want to get in there and start working with it, but they're kind of stuck. Maybe they're overanalyzing, maybe they don't know what the first step is. And that's something that Bearex helps them get over. So get over that hump. Um, so first of all, Andrew, why don't you give us 30 seconds about you and Bearex?
Yeah, absolutely, Joe. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here and have these conversations with you. So as you said, my name is Andrew Gissal. Own a company called Bearex with two other owners. There's three of us. And we mainly help manufacturers, but we do help other industries as well, but mainly help manufacturers with their data strategy. And we define that in a few different ways, but the easiest way to understand it is just that we take a look at we have this concept that every manufacturer or company is sitting on a gold mine of information, which is their data, but it's not used in a way in order to give them the proper information. It's broken into silos. It's not used effectively. And a lot of times it's inaccurate, unreliable, or there's pieces missing. So we help them mine that information and are able to use it for better decision making.
Perfect. All right, so I'm stuck, and I was stuck in my marketing, and I'm trying to figure out keywords and all this other crap, and I'm just like bogged down in my own head. I'm stuck in my own head, and I have a conversation with my marketing person, and she's like, "Joe, you need to do personas." I'm like, "Yeah, okay," but I couldn't get out of my own way, and I'm like, I just need it, like one thing that I can do. And all she said was, "Joe, write down one name of one person that you should call that that would sort of encapsulate your standard customer." And that's all it took. I wrote down three names. I made three phone calls. I filled out a spreadsheet. Yeah, and I just needed that little thing to unlock the momentum. So what is it that you do to help with that process, to unleash the dragon inside?
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of times when we work with somebody, they usually come to us because a referral or, hey, I was talking to this person and they said, I got to give you a call. And so a lot of times they know that there's steps that they would like to take. They just have no idea where to go or what to do. And so our first step is always talking about being curious. Like that's number one, is just to be curious within your own business. And so that shows up in a few different ways. I think we're going to get into that a little bit, but it's really just starting to start observing processes that are happening in your business. It's observing individuals doing their roles and asking them questions and why are they doing it that way and how are they doing it. And usually just by taking that first step of being curious, you can uncover and follow a lot of different breadcrumbs.
Okay. So is there a need to put like infrastructure in place from a reporting perspective? I'm thinking BI, and is that a factor that keeps them from getting started?
Yeah. So a lot of times what will happen is if you don't know where to start, somebody out there is going to tell you where to start, right? Whether you read a blog or you read this new product that comes out. And so if you don't know where to start and you're not curious yourself, you're going to find new shiny objects and new things to run after and try to implement. But if you take more control and be curious yourself, what will happen is not only be curious in the operations, but be curious in the information that you have currently. So when you're asking about like having a BI structure in place right away, what I would say is that you need to be able to have access to your data and see what's there and see how people are utilizing it. So to the extent that that needs to occur, to understand what is already captured and how people are utilizing it in your organization every day, that's the structure you need in place to just get started. From there, once you're curious, you're going to see inaccuracies in data. You're going to see inaccuracies in processes that'll help us then take the next step to move forward.
Mm-hmm. Now, are we going, when you work with a client, are you leading them towards a balanced scorecard, or is it more granular than that, or yes to both, or it depends on the situation?
Yeah, and your definition of balanced scorecard, help me understand that. Just make sure we're talking the same language.
When I think of a balanced scorecard, I think that there's 5-8 things that I really need to pay attention to as a business owner to make sure that things are on track. Now, there's probably 1,000 things I could pay attention to, and they're all important. But what does receivables look like? What does the sales pipeline look like? What does billable hours look like? Those 3 things come to mind just off the top of my head. What's my burn rate on projects? How are we doing comparing estimates to actuals from an effort, labor perspective? Those are the things that I got to watch, because if they get out of control, then profitability goes down the toilet, or I don't have new work to work on, or whatever it is. There's money. I'm playing banker because somebody's not paying me.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, we're on the same page. I just want to make sure that we're talking the same thing. So yes, now there's two sides to this. A lot of times when we'll go in and work with a manufacturer, operational efficiencies or efficiencies that in itself is a measurable by itself, because it's actually a metric that we look at in that space, from the expected production to the actual production that is occurring. So a lot of our focus on efficiencies is the actual measurable or the metric of efficiencies within a manufacturing facility. But that being said, we run on EOS ourselves internally. And
so
then,
for those who don't know, EOS is the Entrepreneurial Operating System. It is a structure framework that includes coaches to help you sort of get unstuck from within your business. It's something that I have the fortune of being able to work with an implementer on, and Andrew's actually an implementer. I don't know if I'll say on the side, but anyway.
Yeah. So I also help companies implement. But through that process, we discover and build our scorecard as a leadership team or as an organization. And so you've done that, and you have your balanced scorecard of 5 to 8, typically 5 to 15. When we assist companies through that process, they'll have more things in there. And then a lot of times after you know what those top measurables are that you need, then it's all about, can you access that information, or where does that information come from, and is it reliable? And so a lot of times we'll start from a balanced scorecard approach to also help us understand what actions or what activity do we need to do to get the proper data.
Gotcha. Okay. So you walk in there, I want to say day one, and what does it look like? I know beforehand we talked about this discovery idea, and the last episode of Power of Productivity was with Saad Shah, and we got into it there about the need for figuring out where you want to go before you actually start going somewhere, right? So if you don't have a goal, everything looks like progress, right? I call it a discovery, which produces a solution roadmap. Saad calls it a discovery, which produces analytics roadmap. I don't know if you have another name for it, but you have that process. And I think it's a little different than mine. Maybe you could get into it a little bit about some of the pushback you get when you talk about needing to do a discovery, and then what does it look like when you walk in there?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's interesting because we'll have people reach out to us and they'll have a very specific need in their mind, right? They'll say, hey, can you help us deliver this or build this? And our first reaction is usually to push back on that and go through what we call an operational audit or a discovery, right? Whatever you want to call it, or a consulting buzzword you want to use. But we all do it for a very specific reason. And it's usually because that person you're talking with and that individual in the company that's trying to drive this forward has a very specific need that they're trying to fill. But a lot of times we find that need is discovered within a vacuum. So they think that this is the largest need, and they think that this is the way to solve it. And so there's two very large assumptions in that world. So how do we go from assumptions to what's actually happening, and how is it going to better impact? So we focus on operational efficiencies. So the way that we look at that is we will look at the operations. So let's talk to the individuals in your company that are responsible for operations, right?
I have to interrupt just for a second because I'm
Absolutely.
smiling because I'm thinking of an experience that I've had, somebody else has had, actually two experiences I've had. One is I was talking with the owner, and they wanted to improve their structure in SharePoint and make it more effective. I said, that's great. We need to do a discovery. I need to talk to people at all levels within your organization so I get an understanding of how they're working with SharePoint. And the owner's response was, you don't need to talk to anybody. I know what I need. And I said, that's fine, but this project will fail if I don't talk with those folks, And I'm also thinking about an experience I had with the marketing manager. She walked in, she knew exactly what she wanted. We designed it, flowcharted it all out. She approved it. We built it, gave it to her people, and said, this isn't what we need. It's just, you're really hitting the nail on the head with this, that you have to talk to all those levels of people. You have to open up that can of worms, or what people are afraid of is a can of worms, but is really an open or an opportunity for enlightenment.
And I feel that a lot of people don't take that step initially because of a few things. And it's mainly driven around fear. One is the fear that I'm going to create more work for them. I'm going to confuse them. They are then going to not really know where to go. Another reason is fear of getting too much input and then letting people down, because if they give me too much and I only do one thing, am I letting them down because I'm letting them voice? So I think the reason that people don't do that is they're assuming, because they take that responsibility on their own. So they'll say, I'm going to take the responsibility because I'm going to help and I'm going to solve this. But in actuality, the individuals and the people carrying out the operations, they're the ones that we need to make sure that we know we get their voice, we know their processes, and we can help and support their processes throughout.
I don't know if we can unpack this, but there's a dynamic in a room with a lot of people, that there are people with big voices that talk a lot, but they don't know jack. They don't have the answers. And often it's the quiet ones that have the answers, but getting them to open up and getting people to actually hear them is the hard part. Just give me a yes or no on that, because we don't have time to deal with it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's how it goes. That goes to poorly run meetings. That goes to poorly decided projects. There's a few things that I think that impacts much more than just this topic. Is if we don't have the proper structure around those things.
All right. So let's dig more into you're bringing people in from all walks of life, if you will, or all levels in the organization to get that conversation going. And then you're in that what are you dealing with in that conversation? What topics are you addressing?
Yeah, from our perspective, mainly because of the services that we can support and help with, what we'll do is we'll say, okay, who are your top key employees? Let's take a look. So if we're talking to a manufacturer, that could be shipping, that could be a shift supervisor, plant manager, maintenance, engineering, anybody that kind of touches all these different disciplines. And so what we'll do is we'll sit down, we'll block off, say, 2 to 3 hours, myself and let's say the champion of the project, from the client's perspective. And we'll just bring in each employee at one every, say, 20 minutes. And we discover with them in the room about their job and their role around 3 main topics. One is meetings that they attend. Another one is the softwares that they use. And then the third one are the reports that they run and that they look at. And there's a very specific reason why we look at those 3 things. It's mainly the tools and the support that they have in order to do their job effectively. You think about it, tools are reports and softwares and products I am given in order to do my job effectively. And meetings is the support system around them and to ensure that they're getting the right support to do their job. So that's why we look at those 3 different areas. And we do it on a one-on-one conversation, right? We just 20 minutes and we kind of talk about those 3 things, and we don't stay surface level. We dig in quickly. So questioning could potentially look at, what are the top reports that you use and your day-to-day. They'll go through a few of them. Where do you get them? How do you pull them? Is there any manual work in order to get that information? Who do you share that information with? After you have this report, what do you do with it? Like, what actions are driving from this? Which of these reports do you bring into your meetings? And does anybody else bring something similar? So you can start kind of connecting all. Whoops, I may have lost you for a minute, Joe.
There we are. You're back. Maybe.
Joe, you still there?
Yeah. I think you're good now.
Bouncing. I'm not sure it's your internet or my internet. Okay. Sorry about that. So that's kind of our approach. And it's amazing some of the things that start coming out just by being curious and having those conversations.
So reports, software used, and meetings, and that impacts a lot. Reports and software are things or tools. Meetings is that structure that helps to manage those tools. Yeah, it's more of an activity, the way I looked at it, and that was unique to me. What's the end result of all that? You do all these interviews, you capture all this information, and then what? What happens with that information?
Yeah. So it's funny because there's always this fine line and balance of discovering and gaining information and over analysis and paralysis. And so there's this balance we need to play that, a funny story, but I was thinking about replacing flooring in my house, and we had a friend. I was kind of just bouncing the idea off of him. And he came back and he said, well, I just don't think you have enough information yet to be clear. And it's something that's been really, it sticks with me. And as soon as you have enough information to be clear to take a step, don't overthink it and take the step. But if you're looking around and you have no idea what step to take, you don't have enough information yet. So what that means is we just need to be curious and have these conversations and have these meetings. So our process, we'd have that conversation. And it's amazing because from that quick 2 to 3 hour exercise, you see in the room, our champion has written down 30 ideas. Some may be involved in some things that we do, some things aren't. They just have all these new ideas and things they need to do. All of a sudden, things become clear.
Mhm.
So now it's time to act. Don't overanalyze, don't overdo anything. Now it's time to act. But now I have a list of 10 things. Like, how do I know where to act, right? So there's kind of 2 steps in this phase. First step is commonalities and intersections of opportunities that you see talking to the collective group. After talking to 5 or 6 people, we may have a list of 20 things, but 5 of them kind of overlap everybody. Well, that's a pretty good project to take on, and because it overlaps majority of operations. So that's what we'll look at first. But then we take a simple approach to that. So say now we end up with 5, right? We take a simple approach to say, is this worth it? And how do we take a step forward? And we call it the WOOP method, which is WOOP. Okay.
Mhm.
So it's a pretty simple method. You just say, hey, here's an opportunity. Here's a challenge. Here's a potential solution. And I'm going to compare it to 4 questions. First one is why. Why is it on this list? Why does that matter? Okay. If we can't answer the why, it probably shouldn't be on the list. So that's the W. O is the outcomes. So if this were to be taken care of, this project were to go through, we could fix that challenge, what would be the outcomes that we would see from it? So what would be the benefits on the other side?
Mhm.
So now we're starting to understand why it's important. We're starting to understand the outcomes of when it's fixed, of what that could do for us. The third one is O, which is the obstacles. So now we want to look at what obstacles are going to get in our way in order to do that. Because sometimes the obstacles are just too big and the outcome isn't worth the obstacles. And then the fourth one is performance. So is there a performance measurable or a performance metric that we can tie to that? And what would be the increase that we would expect to see from that adjustment?
What would be the measurable impact to the business from a financial perspective?
Or employee satisfaction,
or customer satisfaction, or
yeah,
whatever. Something that's meaningful to the life of the business, to the growth of the business, to the life and the growth of your customers, as well as your staff, your employees.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that's something that is important. And this process will pull it out, but I've seen on many occasions people come to me with projects and I look at it going, where is the benefit? And there isn't any from those perspectives, but they think it would be cool, and cool doesn't pay bills, and cool doesn't necessarily make your staff, your employees happy, or make your customers satisfied. There is a place for polish and professionalism and, doing some work to get there. So you present well and it's easy for people to understand how to interact with you. But just doing things for the sake of cool doesn't really help. I wanted to go back to the gathering more information because I think everybody is at a different level on how much information they need in order to take the step forward. And the fact that the action itself is another opportunity to gather information, right? At some point, we have to step into the void, and we'll learn something by stepping into the void. And maybe it's, this isn't really the direction we should be going, but now we know that, and we learn something in the process that will be helpful as we do go in the right direction.
Yeah. Really good. Was there something specific you wanted to talk about there? Or wanted to talk about it broadly?
No, I just wanted to bring up the fact that sometimes action itself is gathering more information.
Yeah, that's a good point. So through this process, it's amazing how many times when we talk about what we're going to do, they go, well, that's it. It's so simple. And It's because it takes this methodology that all you need is enough information to have a path to take a step. You don't need to take 20 steps by taking one step, right? Like it's this idea that we know that this is where we need to start. As soon as we have that information and have a pretty good understanding of where to start, we don't even have to be 100% accurate. It's just we know in this area is where we need to start. If you continue to dig in and continue to stay in that space, that's where the confusion comes in. That's where the doubt comes in. That's where the overthinking, the overanalyzing comes in. Clarity will come from enough information to take a step and then the step itself. Yeah. So if you never take the step, you aren't going to be able to become more clear. So example, right? You can, I think both of our audience combines understand dashboarding and data visualization and looking at information, some of those things. And if anybody has tried to build a dashboard for somebody else, I'm going to give you this information because you are wanting this information. You realize that as much information as you gather up front, there will be adjustments, because once you start seeing things in front of you and start pulling and massaging, that's when things become more clear. Oh yeah, we talked about this in this vacuum over here, but now that when I see it out in the real world, we actually need to adjust it this way. We need to do this, and we need to pull this, and we need to pull this information. And the amount of time that when you take the action up front, you can save just by starting and working through those things together, that's where the value is on the other side.
Absolutely. All right. Operational efficiency. Can you unpack that a little bit? We've got just a few minutes left, but maybe if you could take a minute and just unpack, what do you mean by OE?
Yeah, operational efficiencies. So there's a couple of things I mean by it. We do specialize a lot within the manufacturing space and helping manufacturers. We're based in Michigan, which is a very large manufacturing hub. And we support mainly small and mid-sized family-owned manufacturers. And operational efficiency hits on a few different things. One, the efficiency measurable itself is all around how efficient are we at pushing out product through our doors. So there's a measurement called throughput, which is about the actual product moving through the manufacturing process from coming in to leaving the doors. And so all of that is operational efficiency. It's much more than just a singular focus one way or another, but that entire process and highlighting bottlenecks and how do we create new processes, new procedures in doing that. One really large thing that we're really excited about, that we're launching a new product called the Bearex Shop Pulse that's going to be able to sit at a manufacturing station. They call it workstations. And we're able to connect into the data of the machine and pull that and combine that with the ERP information in order to give real live availability and productivity numbers to the machinists and operators themselves, but also to management, and to understand from an efficiency perspective how we're moving things through this shop itself. That's a very specific case, but a little bit more broadly around operational efficiency truly is about how we deliver the products that we sell every day.
All right, cool. So we got a giveaway at the end. So we've got some tips, but this time we've got an actual thing that people can download. But before we get to that, how can people get a hold of you, Andrew?
Yeah, the best way is probably by email. There you go. It's on the bottom of the screen. My email is agissal@bearex.com. Perfect.
And then to get a hold of me, there we be. Wainz@Turtle@Works, phone number. And let's see. I think we are going to display now how they can download this. And can you put a face on what this operational audit is?
Yeah, this is just it's a really simple document of what the process I walked through today. So what it is, it's a good starting point. I would urge you to customize some of the questions based on your business and your operations, but it's a great place to start to just have some questions and to be curious with your team. And then it also, after you can gather some of that information, it walks you through the WOOP process. That WOOP process is also on this document.
Perfect. So to get there, it's https://turtle.works/operational audit. So turtle.works/operational audit, and that'll allow you to download the file and run with it. All right. Well, this has been awesome, Andrew. I'm glad we had a chance to hook up and work through this. And I think there's some tips that people heard that will be useful. Hopefully, it helps some people get the momentum they need to get moving and benefit better from their data. So
Absolutely. Thanks, Joe. I really appreciate the time today. Good conversation, as always.
Okay. Bye now.